Hello, British Columbia. Well, it's been quite a week in my riding of Oak Bay Gordon Head. My neighbors are furious that they've been thrust into what they consider to be an unnecessary election in the middle of a worldwide pandemic. They can see that the NDP would rather run on the success of Dr. Bonnie Henry than on the so-called NDP plan for economic recovery. My neighbors know that the NDP doesn't do economic recovery. They have only one tool in their toolbox, and that's taxation. We all get that we will be doing deficit financing for the foreseeable future, but the people in BC have been taxed to the brink by this government, and some of them beyond the brink. I was thrilled to take our leader, Andrew Wilkinson, around to visit small businesses in my riding on day 2 of this pandemic election campaign. We listened to the concerns of businesses who tell us they've felt completely abandoned by the NDP government. The residents of Oak Bay Gordon Head are big on integrity, and one's word around here is huge. And I can tell you one thing that significantly lessens their worry is when I tell them that it was the previous government that hired Dr. Bonnie Henry, and even though she's not going to be on any ballot, she's not going anywhere.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jet Sunner. I'm the BC Liberal candidate representing Delta North. This has been a whirlwind of a first week. I'm excited to see our leader, Andrew Wilkinson, call out John Horgan and the NDP for what they are, political opportunists. Campaigning during a pandemic can be challenging, and voters will not have access to the information they need. I encourage John Horgan to accept our leader's proposal for 3 televised debates, so all of you have the proper information. I'm proud to stand with all of you and the BC Liberal Party. Let's pull together and win this election.
Vote for Daddy!
Hi, everyone. My name is Petra Ventimilla. I'm your BC Liberal candidate for Boundary Similkameen. The people in the Boundary Similkameen, they need to have confidence in their government to provide opportunities for all of British Columbians. All John Horgan's government has given us is a risky and unnecessary election that puts politics before people, and we know it. That's why I'm excited to join Andrew Wilkinson and the BC Liberal team and to advocate for bold policies that better the lives of British Columbians, all British Columbians, including these guys right here. So I look forward to representing the BC Liberals both in my riding of Boundary Similkameen and in the legislature. Yay!
Hello, British Columbians. I'm Todd Stone, and I'm really pleased to be here with my wife, Chantel. I'm proud to be the BC Liberal candidate in Kamloops South Thompson. It's been my real privilege to serve the people of this constituency for the past 7 years. I'm going to work my tail off to earn their continued support. I'm very proud to also be on a team with such amazing and diverse candidates, people that are focused on working for British Columbians in every corner of our province. And I'm very proud of our leader, Andrew Wilkinson, who's completely dedicated to restoring confidence and rebuilding BC. You know, we're almost through the first week of this election campaign, and it's an election that was forced on all British Columbians by John Horgan. It's an election that didn't need to happen by law for another year, and it's an election that nobody wants except for John Horgan, who's putting his own interests ahead of those of the citizens of our province. By calling an election, John Horgan has put government into caretaker mode, and he's done that in the middle of a pandemic. But this means that there's no Minister of Education focused on the safety of our kids. There's no Minister of Health focused on the well-being of British Columbians, and there's no Finance Minister focused on economic recovery. That said, we're ready to fight this election, and it's an election that's largely about trust. John Horgan broke his word by promising not to call an election. He's tried to suggest that his government was unstable, and we all know that not to be true. He's broken key promises like providing universal childcare, making housing more affordable, and providing mental health, addiction, and recovery supports to BC's most vulnerable population. He promised to provide relief to condo owners hit with skyrocketing strata insurance costs, and he looked forestry workers in the eyes and promised to fight for them. Well, we all know that John Horgan has failed on all of this. He doesn't deserve a second term. John Horgan can't be trusted. What British Columbians want is a premier who worries first and foremost on what can be actioned to help people, not someone who wakes up every day wondering what today's dad joke will be. What people want is a premier who doesn't just make promises, but someone who knows how to get things done. A premier who doesn't prevent 85% of workers from working on infrastructure projects, but believes in everyone having the right to pursue opportunity for themselves and their families. What the people of British Columbia want is a premier who is a thoughtful, smart, and serious person, a medical doctor, someone who will keep British Columbians safe through this pandemic and put a real economic recovery plan on the table that will actually help people get back into jobs and small businesses get back up on their feet. Ladies and gentlemen, that person is my friend and our leader, the next Premier of British Columbia, Andrew Wilkinson.
Well, thank you so much. And we have the real political test here in that when the 7-year-olds move out of the picture, we know it's time to wrap up the speech. So we all know that we're in an extraordinary time. This has been a year like no other. And across British Columbia, we've faced this monumental challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic. And let's make no mistake and make it clear right out of the gate. Dr. Henry has done a remarkably good job working with the people of British Columbia to get the pandemic under control, and a BC Liberal government would look forward to working with her in her professional civil service role for years to come. She is a very talented individual, and we need to make sure that she feels that she would be part of any ongoing government effort in the public health sphere. Let's make that clear right now. People, businesses, local governments all across British Columbia have risen to this challenge and made sacrifices to help stop the spread of the virus and the damage that it's doing to each of us in our health and to the economy of British Columbia. We've worked hard to keep each other safe, and that's been a successful venture in British Columbia, and we need to continue doing that for the benefit of all British Columbians. COVID-19 has taken a huge toll in our province, and quite apart from the daily numbers that we see through Dr. Henry, we also now can anticipate serious economic consequences. Our economy is expected to shrink by at least 5.5%. We're looking forward to retail sales being down 10% this year. We're worried about business investment that's expected to drop by 11%. These are going to be issues that are developing now and will run for at least a year that we have to figure out the best pathway to resolve them for the benefit of all British Columbians. And there's a big day coming up next week on September 30th. When more than $6 billion of deferred taxes, that's employers' health tax, that's tobacco tax, that's carbon tax, that all comes due on one day. And our fear on behalf of British Columbians is an awful lot of small businesses, they're going to look at each other at the dinner table tonight, Saturday night, and say, I don't think we can do this. I don't know if we can pay these bills. I don't know if we're going to be in business by Christmas. This is a very serious issue, and it's a very serious issue that's up to all of us to be fully aware of and to address in the best possible way we can. Let's look at some more numbers. Across British Columbia, 668,000 people received CERB payments from the federal government. The number coming from the federal government now is, in this country of 38 million people, 9 million people have received CERB payments. This is a huge economic disruption in our society, and we have to be very sensitive to it and think first and foremost of those people most deeply affected by it. And the StatsCan folks tell us the ones who are most hurt by this economic downdrift from the pandemic are women who work in companies of less than 20 people at the lower end of the income scale. And that's where we have to be most concerned, is looking out for those people who often don't have a voice. We have to be their voice. We have to show the concern and the investment that will be required to get those people back on their feet. Here in British Columbia, the net number of jobs lost, 150,000 people have lost their jobs since February. 34,000 jobs lost in wholesale and retail. You just have to go down the main street of any town or through any shopping mall and see the brown paper and the for lease signs and realize this has devastating consequences. 40,000 jobs lost so far in tourism, accommodation, and hospitality. Look at your local restaurants. Feel their pain. Think about whether they're going to be there at Christmas and do your best to support them because they need our help now like never before. In construction, which continued to operate, 25,000 jobs lost so far. So this is big, folks. This is really fundamental to who we are. And it's important for us to slow down occasionally and think about how are we going to deal with this? Who's going to rise to the occasion? Are we ready as a society? And we are, and we're going to get there. This is all on top of the stress that people have been feeling for years, with a lack of affordable housing, recent serious increases in crime, the failure of our society and our current government to deal with mental health and addictions issues in a really effective way, and 23 new NDP taxes making life more expensive every year. Parties work together in good faith for the health of the people of British Columbia. We're proud of what we did this year in supporting Dr. Henry and the public health effort. We didn't quibble about testing rates. We didn't carp on about remedies that perhaps weren't available. We didn't grumble about disclosure of data because we thought it's best if we, as a party, unite for the health of the people of British Columbia. That's exactly what we did. And we are proud to say that we were part of the solution of getting this pandemic under control. Unfortunately, John Horgan has decided to take advantage of the current circumstances for his own benefit. It's hard to find anybody in the province of British Columbia who thinks it's a good idea to have an election during the second wave of the pandemic when we were successful pushing back the first wave. It's hard to find anybody who says, it's time to go to the polls. It's time to vote when there is a stable government in place with a full year to run on their agreement with the Green Party. Because as the Prime Minister has said, this is a time for governments to govern. And now we find, unfortunately, John Horgan has betrayed the trust of the people of British Columbia. He has come out with stories that do not add up, that are simply not true, about how this came to be, about why we're having an election, and about his own motivations. Many, many people in this province have lost confidence in John Horgan. And now we find ourselves in an election where people are questioning the ethics of the NDP and the morality of a leader who's prepared to go out in the middle of a second wave pandemic and look out for his own job security. It's not just irresponsible, it's just plain wrong. We've asked what kind of person would do that? And unfortunately, the answer is right in front of us, John Horgan and the NDP. Every other province in Canada published its recovery plan in June or July. They knew their people were worried. They knew their people were in trouble. Instead, we had lengthy delays over the summertime. The participants in the economic recovery team, including BC Business Council, Vancouver Board of Trade, weeks went by when there was no input or consultation with them. And what we got on September 17th, I believe it was a self-serving, empty plan from John Horgan that involved transfers between governments, the necessary hiring of contact tracers, and basically next to nothing for average British Columbians. And the real insult was to the tourism industry. 130,000 people work in tourism in BC. We're proud of BC tourism. They said it would take $684 million to get themselves back on their feet and reliably back in business next year. What did they get in the economic recovery plan? A consultation process that cannot take place until a government is in place in December. So imagine yourself as the person who got through the summer with zero revenue for your bear watching business. And this is what you hear. Imagine yourself as the small ski operator who's going to have to take reservations to get people onto the lifts, and people are going to be worried about being in crowds. And you're told, we're going to have a consultation process. These are insults to the people of British Columbia. And John Horgan and the NDP seem to take some kind of perverse pride in thinking that this is the time to spring an election on people. And let's be clear again, it's irresponsible and it's just plain wrong. Their plan does next to nothing to get things done. Government's gone into caretaker mode. I was a deputy minister during the 2005 election. And let me tell you folks, next to nothing gets done during elections at the civil service level because they don't have direction. There's no board of governors to tell them what to do. Their job is to maintain the status quo. So there's a further 2 months delay before people can hear what's going to happen in the province of British Columbia. This is going to be extended because Elections BC tells us they expect 800,000 people to vote in postal votes. That means there'll be a big delay in getting the result. We'll all be fretting for weeks after the official election date to find out what the result is, but the people of British Columbia won't be fretting. They'll be waiting for answers, for progress, and for a government. And who inflicted this on them? John Horgan's selfish decision to call an election. But during an election, it's a chance to put some ideas on the table, a chance to raise things, a chance to create some sense of purpose, a chance to generate some sense of hope in our society, that good things can happen, that it's coming, that if you'll bear with us, we'll get through this election, and if you elect a BC Liberal government, some good things are going to happen. And one of them that we're prepared to commit to right now, right here, is to make sure that flu shots, flu vaccines are available free of charge to every British Columbian, because we don't need an epidemic on top of a pandemic. I'm fortunate that I've trained as a medical doctor, and I know how these things work. I know how it flows through the system. I know how people fall ill, and I know how to keep people healthy. And this is a very important step. Flu vaccinations have been available for people in certain groupings, such as at-risk people and people over a certain age, but they've usually come at a charge of $25 or more to everybody else. And what we can do, if we can get this implemented fast enough, given these delays that are in place, is make sure that every British Columbian who wants one gets the flu shot that they need to get them safely through this winter. Over the coming days, we'll present British Columbians with a plan. It's a plan to talk about a positive future, a positive vision of British Columbia. It's a chance to think about how every single one of us, each of our families, each of our communities can say, I see where we're going. I can plan. It's not month to month or even day to day. So that people who are going into credit card debt that they never thought possible can say, now I know where I'm going, and now I'll be able to start to collect my resources and move ahead. We will have a plan to get people back to work. A plan to make it easier for mums and dads to work while raising a family. A plan to roll back the terrible impacts of drug addiction and to restore safety in our communities. A plan to increase the supply of housing so that people can look forward to a settled future in a home of their own. And a plan to get BC back on track and excited again about living in what is truly a wonderful place, and we like to think the best place on earth. These are the things that we will be rolling out in the days to come to generate that sense of optimism that all of us are missing these days. It's time to rebuild British Columbia. It's time to restore confidence. And that's what we will be offering the people of British Columbia in the days and weeks to come. We want to put a smile on people's faces. This election has been about mistrust, about dishonesty, and we want to turn the page and make this a positive agenda so that British Columbians can have a smile on their face again. You represent communities in every corner of this province. I'm looking at a screen here with a superb group of people who've come together because they are committed to the public good. These are BC Liberal candidates all over British Columbia who've come forward to say, this is our chance to contribute. This is our chance to be part of the positive agenda. This is our chance to talk about a future that will be bright for all of us throughout British Columbia. We are working hard to get that message out, and in the weeks to come, we're going to hope to generate a whole bunch of excitement across British Columbia. This incredible team is going to put out the message that we don't have to divide British Columbians the way John Horgan loves to, picking friends and enemies, winners and losers. That's just so wrong. That's not who we are as a society. We came here because it's an egalitarian, forward-looking, exciting place, not a place where people pick fights with their neighbors. So it's going to take time, it's going to take effort, and it's going to take dedication. It's going to take an awful lot of socially distanced door knocking. It's going to take an awful lot of mask-on phone calls. It's going to take a huge amount of effort to do this new form of campaigning that doesn't involve rallies and meetings and gatherings of 87 candidates in a room. That's, if not illegal, certainly incorrect and the wrong way to go. So we'll be doing a different kind of politics, and I think you're seeing it already, where we're doing a lot of things through the media and a lot of things through social media, and it's working. The level of engagement across this province is growing phenomenally, so that it's much faster now that people have gotten onto the idea that there's an election coming. The response is widespread, very deep and wide, that John Horgan should not have called this unnecessary election. And what we have to do now is turn it to that positive agenda. What is this election really about? It's about the future. It's about making British Columbia exciting again. Because the future of BC is in our hands. It's up to us, folks. And we're going to do this together. So I hope you'll join me on this journey over the next few weeks. It's going to be exciting. Elections are always bumpy. And we'll be doing our level best to get out to British Columbians the prospect of a bright future. We are going to restore confidence and rebuild BC together. It's a huge challenge, but I'm excited about it, and I hope you'll join us in this cause. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Can you hear me? We've just got a couple questions that we have time for. So we've got a couple in the room here and a couple on the line. So we'll go ahead and start with Penny DeFloss from CTV. And go ahead.
Oh, hi there. You brought up your medical background, and I'm just wondering if your pitch to voters right now is that it's time for Dr. Premier during a pandemic.
Well, it's an interesting question, Penny. I think the ability to process medical information has never been more valuable than right now. And we've seen in the last 6 months this really tragic phenomenon in social media of the pseudo-experts and the misinformation. And with my background and the reading that I still do every week when the New England Journal of Medicine arrives in my mailbox, is to be able to cut through the noise and figure out where it's really going. That's a very helpful thing because it can be put to the service of the people of British Columbia in concert with Dr. Henry.
I do, actually. Just looking at Elections BC's fundraising data so far this year, the Liberals are $500,000 behind the NDP in fundraising. That's a considerable gap, and I just wonder how you're going to make up for that because, you know, a lot of people are saying it's going to come down to social media advertising, and I just wonder how concerned you are about that.
Well, you weren't around on Tuesday morning when we got the report off our accounting systems that in a single day we brought in $100,000 in donations because people are furious with John Horgan for having triggered an unnecessary election, and they're going on bcliberals.com in phenomenal numbers and donating at rates we have never seen before.
Great, thanks, Penny. And then we have time for a question from the phone. That'll be Joel Ballard from CBC. Joel, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Wilkinson. So today, John Horgan warned that a Liberal government would usher in the return of the MSPs. You denied that on Twitter today, saying that that would not return under the Liberals. But you've also been pretty clear in the past that you're not the biggest fan of the employer health tax. So I'm trying to get a clear sense of what is the BC Liberal platform and commitment when it comes to MSPs and the employer health tax? Would there be changes?
It seems that John Horgan's intent on destroying his credibility every single day. What he said today is not true. We're in a crisis. It's time for John Horgan to start telling the truth. There will be no return to medical services plan premiums under a BC Liberal government, period. We're going into a period of deficit spending. Everybody knows that. We're going to have to worry about where the revenue is coming from while we're still investing in the health and well-being and prosperity of British Columbians. So let's get this straight. We need to be able to raise funds to pay for government, but right now the priority is using the tools of government to take care of the people of British Columbia. And let's also be clear, it's time for John Horgan to start telling the truth to the province of British Columbia and stop manufacturing these complete falsehoods.
Do you have a follow-up, Joel?
Yes, please. So that's the answer on MSPs, but what's the answer for the employer health tax? Would that also remain untouched? I know it's something that a lot of people, especially during a pandemic, are going to be relying on. So what's the Liberal plan for the employer health tax?
Well, British Columbia's total revenue stream is about $60 billion. That's already dropped to $48 billion in the last 6 months. And we'll see what happens next week on September 30th to see if it drops even further. So the various sources of revenue are going to have to be sorted out and see how much of it actually comes in the door. So employers' health tax is about 3% of government revenue, and I expect it'll carry on for the time being because we're in a tough spot, folks. But let's be crystal clear. There will be no return to medical services plan premiums under a BC Liberal government, and I do wish that John Horgan would start telling the truth about these things rather than making stuff up.
Great. Thanks, everyone. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks.
Good to see you, Penny.